Our guest today has lived a life so full of twists, trials, and triumphs that it could fill more than one lifetime. Growing up without a father in a home fueled by drugs, alcohol, and abuse, he faced hardships most of us can't imagine. He escaped that life by joining the military twice, earning his degree, and working everywhere from bartending to aerospace. But life didn't stop testing him. He's been divorced 3 times, survived the brink of suicide, and walked through some of the darkest valleys a person can face. And yet, through it all, he's learned how to not just survive, but thrive. Brandon now uses his journey to help others do the same. As the host of Life is Crazy, a podcast dedicated to suicide prevention, perseverance, and personal growth, he shares raw, relatable stories that inspire hope and healing. He also co-hosts Buckeye Battle Cry, a passionate celebration of college football and his beloved Ohio State Buckeyes. From rock bottom to building community, Brandon's mission is simple: to prove you can overcome anything and still live a life of value and purpose. Please welcome Brandon Held. Welcome, man.
Welcome. Thank you for that amazing intro.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's y'all's story, man. I just throw some videos in, but
I said welcome. That's how used to I am to being the host. already forgot I was the guest.
No, I get it, man. Well, why don't we start out with a little bit of background, man? Let's talk a little bit about what drove you to the military, and then we can get into some of your family life, and then into the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really tell you what drove me into the military without starting with the family life.
Okay, so we can start there.
Yeah, I will definitely have to start there. So, I grew up in, a poor family, and alcoholism, drug addiction, the inability to hold and maintain a job was what I was surrounded by my whole childhood, by, my family, by my mother's side, my stepfather. My real father left when I was 2 years old. I never met him in life. He committed suicide like 10 years ago, but I never did meet him in life. But growing up in that environment and seeing, the way everyone was so miserable, how much they hated life, and how checked out they were from life in the world, I thought that's not the life for me. I don't want that life. And, I certainly assumed I would have kids someday and all that. And I thought, I don't want my kids to grow up in a life like this either. So I was determined to change that history. And, I was a terrible student in school. My home life was a lot of drinking and partying, and if not that, fighting in the middle of the night while I'm trying to sleep. And so I went to school pretty much, bloodshot eyes, tired almost every day. As a matter of fact, my sophomore year of high school, my geometry teacher called my mom because he accused me of taking drugs before coming to school. But that just wasn't the case. I just wasn't getting sleep because of my environment. And so anyway, I didn't focus on school. My mom didn't, push school or enforce school as a priority or anything like that. So I thought my only way to really get anywhere in this world was to join the military. And so between my 2 uncles who had been in the Army, and then my one uncle who was in the Air Force, they all 3 said, join the Air Force. They weren't in the military anymore, but they all had served 4 years. And they all 3 said, join the Air Force. And so off I went. And that was the path I went on.
Yeah, I can co-sign that, man. That's kind of what I tell people too. After 20 years in the Army, I say, join the Air Force.
Yeah, I would tell anyone. I spent 4 years in the Air Force, 4 years in the Army. And I would tell anyone, join the Air Force. It's not even close.
No, not at all. The Army, the recruiters tell you you're going to get to see the world. They just leave out the part about it's the third world.
Well, and all the morons you have to deal with, but that's a different topic.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. So, what was your MOS we'll start with the Air Force. What was your MOS in the Air Force?
Yeah, so I don't remember those numbers. I think it was 88 something, but I was a security policeman.
Okay.
Security specialist is what it was called back then. Then they combined it to security forces after I got out. But I was a missile cop essentially, which was not what I signed up for. I got screwed over by my recruiter. I wanted to be law enforcement, drive the cop car, pull people over, arrest people, that whole deal.
Yeah.
But that's not what I ended up getting. He sent me up for security specialist, and they sent me to mine out in North Dakota and put me out in a missile field. Yeah.
So the Army version of the Air Force.
Yeah. No, and I'll be honest with you. I left a lot out. It's hard to include your whole story in a short podcast, but I used to watch my mom get beat up on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And that built like this protector inside of me. Mm-hmm. And so that was why I wanted to be a cop. That drove me. I couldn't think of anything, that I really wanted to do with my life, but I did want to protect people, which felt, right in the military, but also as a cop. And so after, that, I've always been a protector, but that may have changed like how I want to live my career. I'm a protective person to my friends, loved ones, family. But I actually did like the missile cop part of it. I didn't like being stuck in Minot, North Dakota. But I did like, going out in the missile field for 3 days. You eat there, you sleep there, you do everything for 3 days. And then you come back in and then you had 4, depending on the rotation, 4 to 6 days off in a row to do whatever you wanted. So that schedule was pretty nice.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the dudes that I worked with. By and large, I would say 90+% of the guys that I work with, I really had a good time in the missile field with them and being a security policeman with them. There's just a lot of things that, as a first time experience, you take for granted because that's just all So you just think that's the way it is. So that part was cool.
Yeah. I get it, man. My first duty station was Korea. And, I told the recruiters I didn't care where I went as long as it wasn't Korea. So that's all they heard was go to Korea. And that's where I went. And, I learned that there's camaraderie there. I learned that, soldiers are close. And I thought that's what the military was.
Yeah.
So it was a big culture shock when I got back stateside, and now everybody has their own families, their own jobs, their own tasks. They, you go to work, you see them, and then after work, you don't see them no more. And that closeness had disappeared. So
and
I
they care about their own interests first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I learned at that point that the military was very close when you were alone, and when you weren't alone, you were individuals, and that's really how it is.
I didn't get to go remote or overseas or really anything like that, but I grew some of my strongest bonds in boot camp, in tech school. Right. In those getting kicked down, you need someone to help you and work with you situations. That's what one of my best friends, we were in boot camp together in Air Force. I was 17. We're still great friends today.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's something about hard times and trauma that brings people to close, So I absolutely get it. So you decided at the end of 4 years to go Army, or did you get out for a while and then go back to the Army?
Yeah. So to make a long story short, I thought the Air Force was going to be my career. I thought it was going to be my life until I retired. But right when I was just about to hit my 3rd year, my CJR would come up. I was busting ass in the Air Force. Like I was getting Airman of the Quarter. I was getting a job. I got a job called Flight Security Controllers in E3, which was only formerly for E6s. I was the second E3 in Air Force history to get it. I mean, I was really working hard to build a solid Air Force career. And I don't know if you know what QCing is, quality control.
Yeah.
And maybe the audience doesn't, but so I was at work and a master sergeant was coming out to my job to quality control me, which is, basically check to make sure I know my responsibilities and my job duties while I'm on the job. And when he got out to the missile field, I had a bunch of stuff going on. I had 2 open holes, which, means 2 exposed missiles. I had an alarm going off that a response team was sitting at the site. So between the 3 of those, they had to check in with me every 5 minutes over the radio. And obviously that was staggered. So it wasn't, so if you think about that, I just had no time to do anything.
Yeah.
And so this guy waited around for about an hour and nothing had changed. And so he got, he didn't act frustrated, but in his head, he must have got frustrated and left. And because he said, all right, I'll have to do this some other time. And I said, all right, thank you. Sorry, it didn't work out. And he left. And then he went back to base and wrote up a report that he QC'd me and I failed. And he got me decertified from my job and he got me written up. And that was the beginning of the end of my Air Force career, because I went to my flight sergeants and I said, hey, this isn't true. You guys could QC me right now. I'll pass everything. That I wouldn't be in this position if I didn't. And they said, yeah, we know, we got your back. We'll fight for you. Yeah, and that didn't happen. Nothing happened. I went straight to the commander, the full bird colonel, because I was an athlete and I knew him by name. He knew me by name. And I told him, sir, this is BS. He made this up. I don't know why, but he came out there. He didn't QC me. He left. He wrote a false report, and he just basically said, if I can't believe a master sergeant over an airman first class, and my Air Force is broken. And I just looked at him and I said, well, sir, your Air Force is broken. And I walked out. And that's where I decided to end my Air Force career.
Yeah, I get that. And I've seen several master sergeants, E8s and E9s that, lived a career of telling lies, and it bite them in the ass at the end of their career. At some point, they always come up and eventually get caught. But I don't know why that colonel would say that, because it's not uncommon. At the end of the day, some people put the rank on and they think the respect comes from the colors on your badge or the stripes on your badge, and they forget about leadership. And it sounds exactly like what this guy did.
Yeah.
And he's not like he's got a hard job. He's going out there and watching other people and just grading you on their job. It's not like he had to do anything.
No, I never knew the guy before. I never met the guy before. I think he just didn't like that I was an airman first class in this position, that normally a staff sergeant or higher would hold. And I don't know, whatever got under his skin that day, he just decided to take it out on me. And it just made me feel like, well, if this one guy comes along and he can because I was going to get senior airman below the zone 6 months early, most likely. Mm-hmm. And, obviously that prevented that from happening. And so I was thinking, well, if this one guy can derail my career like this, what happens throughout my career if I run across other people like this? So it really made me rethink everything. So, I just decided I needed to take a different path in life.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. I don't think that's uncommon either. I think, when you talk to a lot of people that do their time and just get out, a lot of times you'll find out it's because their time in showed them negative leaders. I don't think too many people come in and have great leadership and then just say, okay, thanks for the college money, it's not for me, and leave. Maybe some do, but I would say the majority that get out, it's because of piss poor leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. First of all, I've had pretty bad leaders most of my life, whether it be in the Army or civilian corporate world. It just seems people get into a position based on time around here, no matter what side of the house you're on, doesn't necessarily mean they belong in that position. But yeah, I mean, same for joining. I did join the Army eventually later on, literally just to get a master's degree. I wanted to get an MBA and I wanted it paid for. Yep. And I didn't want to have to take on debt for it. But I had considered, after getting the MBA, going to officer candidate school, becoming an officer and all that. But I just had a really shitty experience in the Army. And I just thought, nah, F this place. I'm not going through this kind of crap again. The best thing I can do is just take this MBA and get the hell out of here.
Yep. No, yeah, I completely understand. The Army's not the place that you're going to find. Man, I just seen it change so much. You know, it used to be 6, 7, 8 years was not uncommon to be an E5, you know, or an E6. Yeah. And now you're seeing people that are E5s after 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
And there's no time to develop leadership skills at that point.
No, not at all. Especially if you're coming up under bad leaders, they're just gonna mock what they already saw. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's the exact definition of a subordinate, is the direct reflection of its leader. And I think it's even worse on the civilian side, to be honest. You know, I've been in corporate America as well, and I got tired of having civilians that never led troops tell me what leadership was. And it felt like their definition of leadership was, my job is to make somebody to make as many widgets as possible without having to take care of them.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's not leadership.
No. I mean, there's these people get into positions, especially in the corporate world, because they're specifically good at a job, but they're not good at dealing with or leading people. And as a leader, you're not successful, in my opinion, or my eyes, if your team isn't successful, if your team isn't happy and morale isn't well, and they're not working their asses off for you, then you're failing as a leader. And that has definitely been the majority of what I've seen in the corporate world as well.
Yeah. I laughed. I had a plant manager hand me a book wrote by a Navy SEAL, and told me that I should read it, I would learn a lot about leadership. And I told him, I said, I've probably done everything that's in that book. And you obviously misunderstood what leadership was. But I was gone a week later after that. I quit. But it was, it's frustrating. And maybe some of that is just the attitude of a soldier or an NCO that, you know, if you didn't lead troops and you didn't take care of soldiers, then you really didn't do leadership.
Yeah. And, you know, I will say this. I mean, you obviously served 20 years. I served 8, 4 in each. I'm not here to shit on the military. I got a lot of phenomenal, amazing qualities that have served me in life from my military time, right? I mean, I was a broken, lost 17-year-old kid, you know, when I joined the Air Force, and it helped me grow up and develop a lot of qualities that have allowed me to succeed in life. And I'm so thankful for the military for that, specifically the Air Force, because that's when I was the most impressionable. So I'm definitely not here to shit on the military. I actually loved my Air Force career, except for that one guy, you know, that one bad apple ruined the whole damn bunch, if you will. So, but overall, my Air Force career was great. Now, unfortunately, when I went in the Army, you know, I joined after college. I was older. The sergeant first class that was in charge of me as a specialist, we were the exact same age, right? But here I had a bachelor's degree. I was going for an MBA. So I don't know if he was just intimidated or a piece of shit or really what he was, but he just didn't like me from day one. And he just made my life rough for the 3 years that he was my supervisor, my NCOIC. And, and he just wasn't a good person. He was an alcoholic. He was married with 2 daughters. He got a soldier pregnant, and he ended up having a daughter with one of his soldiers. And then, and then he ends up hanging himself, about 10 months after he leaves being my supervisor. So I kind of just realized it was less about me and more about him, but I still had to deal with it. Still had to put up with it. So it sucked.
Yeah. Everybody asks me, what's the Army like? And I said, the Army is the Army. It doesn't change no matter where you go. The only thing that does change is the amount of assholes you work with.
Yeah.
Some places have less, some places have more, but at the end of the day, it's the people that make the unit. And almost every time when you say that post sucks, it's because the majority of the leadership there sucks.
Yes.
Nothing to do with the post. It has nothing to do with the Army standards or regulations. It's 99% of the time it's because you're working for an asshole, and it's unfortunate, but it is a big problem. And I think that's one of the reasons why things like sexual assault and all that stuff that happens in the military gets covered up, because there is so much bad leadership. They just don't want to take the chance of dealing with something hard, and maybe they don't even know how to deal with it.
Well, I think, to add to what you're saying, it isn't just the fact that they probably don't know how to deal with it. It's the fact that people are made scapegoats, right? So if you're the leader and it happens under your watch, then it must be your fault, even though you didn't necessarily have anything to do with it or could have prevented it. You were still the man in charge, so it's your fault, right? And so I think people get scared, and in that culture and that environment, that creates bad leaders.
Yes. Nope, you are 100% correct, man. So you get out of the military, and I'm assuming you go to work in corporate America. Is that where you went to from the Army?
From the Army, yes. So, in between the Air Force and the Army, I'd gotten my bachelor's degree. I wanted to do sports play-by-play, hence the Ohio State Buckeye podcast I started recently. But that wasn't working out. That wasn't going to happen. So I decided, all right, well, I'm going to go more into business. So I decided to join the Army, get my MBA, and take a different career path in life. And so the Army brought me to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and I loved Arizona. I loved the sunshine, and the summer to me was, it gets hot, but it beats the crap out of the cold ass winters in the north. So I'll take the heat of the summer to avoid the cold ass winter. And then, so when I got out, everyone was saying, oh, you need to work at Raytheon. That's the place to be if you're going to live here. So I got a job at Raytheon, and, very lucky. I mean, backdoored my way in. I was, when I first got out, I was a personal trainer, and I was just training this guy, and we were getting along, as I did with all my clients. And he was asking me about my life, and I said, yeah, I just got out of the Army. I have an MBA. I'm doing this personal training thing until I get a quote unquote real job. And he goes, you have an MBA? And I said, yeah. He says, man, I'm a director at Raytheon. You can come work for me. So that was how I got into Raytheon, right? Just the connection as a personal trainer. And it was cool. I was excited. Like the same day my now 18-year-old son was born, I got the job offer from Raytheon, which was, 3 times the amount of money I'd ever made in my life. So it just looked like life was on the up and it was going to be amazing. But it turns out, man, when I got into Raytheon, I wasn't really feeling it. Like it just wasn't my vibe. It wasn't my atmosphere, the kind of people. I don't know. I just didn't feel like I fit in, like I belonged. But I was still, trying to do the best for my family. And so I was there working, and about 3 years in, Obama was president, and he decided to make defense cuts. I don't know if you remember that.
The reason
yeah.
why I got out of my last deployment was because of Mr. Obama.
Yeah. So, yeah. So his defense cuts directly hit Raytheon, which directly hit the program I was on. And so then it directly hit me because I got laid off after 3 years of being there as the breadwinner. And at this point, a fairly new family with a 2-year-old and a less than 1-year-old son that I was taking care of by myself, sole provider. So, my whole world got turned upside down there. And, it was a bad time.
Yeah, I can relate to that, man. I kind of, when I retired out of, I don't know, call it giving up, right? I had was working for a company, and my mom passed away this past April.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
It was like April 5th. I appreciate that. And like May, I don't know, 10th, something like that. The place I was working at decided they were going to get a different maintenance manager, and they let me go. And so here I am. I'm now still dealing with the issues from my mom's passing. I've been here in Missouri taking care of her. 4 days before she passed, our lease renewed here, so I can't even move back with my family to Georgia because I'm still responsible for the lease here. And just life was kind of shitty, man. And that's when I decided, I think I'm just going to retire and work for myself and not have to deal with people. And so I understand exactly what you were going through, man. It becomes tough and it makes you question yourself, and then life just keeps going, with you or without you.
Yeah, it definitely put me in a depression. It made me feel like less of a man because I couldn't take care of my family.
Yep.
It messed me up, but I'll tell you what, it ended up being not the worst time in my life, to be frank with you. It felt like it at that time, but I definitely came upon worse later, for sure.
Yeah. So at what point did you decide to start the podcast, or was that after another job from being laid off at Raytheon?
So I did get laid off again later in my life. And this was where the proverbial, shit hit the fan for me. This was where I had enough in life. And so what happened is that family I was telling you about that I had, my wife decided she didn't want to be a part of it anymore. I was working at this time when she made that decision. I was the sole provider. My kids were 8 and 6 at that point. And she just decided she wanted out. And I didn't, I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't want that. I wanted, right. I wanted to keep my family together. I wanted to be a father to my kids every day. So I didn't want out of this, but she did. And right, it's two people's choice to make. So I didn't have a choice. So she left, she took my kids and she moved to her parents, which was hours away. And I didn't see my kids for months. Here I was used to seeing my kids every day. And now she ripped them out of my life, and literally months were passing that I didn't see them, and I couldn't do anything about it till we went to court. And so we go to court, and then she decides to start being ugly because she decides she wants custody. When we originally had talked about 50-50 custody, she decided, she wants full custody. So she started making up a bunch of lies about me, telling the court, just shit that wasn't true. And then during that time, while we're going through this bitter, ugly divorce, the company that I'm working for also just happens to be a contractor for Raytheon. And Raytheon decides they don't want to renew the contract with my company anymore. So now I get laid off again. So now I'm going through a divorce. I'm losing my family. I get laid off again. And I have to sell my house, right? I have no way to pay for it anymore. And then when the divorce is granted, the judge decides I have to keep the $25K in credit card debt my wife had acquired because I was the provider for the family. Didn't make me split it or nothing, just made me take it all. And then also decided, I did get awarded 50-50 custody, but I should pay her child support and alimony. And I'm divorced and I'm unemployed. So I'm like, what the hell is this? So family law is, oh my God, that shit is so broken. It needs to be fixed so badly. So anyway, just going through all this, I kind of felt like, I've done so much in this life to try to combat and overcome the hand that was dealt to me at birth. And now here I am in my mid 40s, fucking homeless, unemployed, lost my family. Even when I start my life again, and get back on my feet, I'm already 50K in the hole, at least, if not more. And I just gave up. I was like, I'm done. So yeah, one night I downed a whole bottle of Ambien, hoping it would kill me. And it didn't. I didn't wake up the next morning and someone was expecting me. And so they called an ambulance knowing the position I was in, what I was going through and all that. So an ambulance came to my house and saved my life. And when they did that and I woke up, I was actually honestly pissed off when I woke up. I was mad they saved my life. Because I was ready to not live it anymore. But then after I got over it and realized, well, I'm here now, right? I mean, what the hell? I may as well make the best of it. And so that's almost when like a switch flipped in my brain. Like I just in that moment had an epiphany, rewired my brain, whatever terminology you want to use. That's when I decided, well, you know what? F this. I'm going to live the best life I can live, right? If I'm going to be here, it's not going to be what it's been. Forget that. I'm going to make smarter choices. I'm going to, work harder, do better things. I'm just going to live a better life. And it was almost like as soon as I made that decision, like, it had like this big, like my life completely changed. I mean, I got a better career than I've ever had. I got, higher pay than I've ever had. I decided to, start getting back into the dating life again. And I met my now wife and I am in the most amazing relationship I've ever been in. I've been divorced 3 times. And every marriage was a struggle. It was ups and downs. It was good and bad. This one has been just all good, like no bads really. So I'm not saying we never don't get along, but comparatively, compared to how awful some of the other ones would get, this is nothing. The times we don't get along in this marriage. So it's just, I just thought if I can go from where I came from and do what I've been able to do in life, I can hopefully help other people achieve the same thing by telling my story and what I went through and give other people hope. And if they want guidance. And so that's where this podcast was born.
My hat's off to you because I know how hard it is to run a mental health type podcast, and it makes the host have to become vulnerable and explain their story, and that's not the easiest thing to do. And at the same time, you have guests that come on and you hear their story, and sometimes it makes you relate to things that had happened in your past. So it keeps coming up.
Yeah.
But, in all honesty, I think that's why those podcasts do help the host and other people, because it does make those things keep coming up, and it does make you keep working through them and dealing with them. And I think that's awesome of what you did. Can I ask how long has the podcast been around?
I've only been doing this since the end of March,
Okay.
but it's been really successful. And I'm obviously Podmatch, because that's how we connected. And getting on Podmatch has really, really helped my podcast a lot. I've met a lot of great guests, either through experienced trauma that they're also trying to help other people as well, or doctors and therapists who I can get on the show and ask questions and get information out to people that might want help or need help, because I do believe in therapy. Now, I will say this: I kind of rewired my own brain, and I made it a choice to focus on the positive and be appreciative of things in life, and put less emphasis or impact on the negative things that happen. Like, understand, okay, this is just one small negative thing that's happening in life right now, right? It'll pass. Whereas before, it was like this bomb that blew up my entire world, my entire way of thinking. I would go into a depression, right? All that. But I had been through therapists multiple times in my life, and I really only had one that I really thought made a huge difference. But the one that I did find made a huge difference. So I do believe in therapy. I do believe in therapists, and I probably wouldn't be here where I am today if I hadn't gone through that in the past as well.
No, I 100% agree. I can say that same thing. I was blessed. I know some people, when they start looking for therapy, it's kind of like the military. They find a bad one and they walk away and they say,
doesn't work.
Yep.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, regardless of what people want to say, psychology is not a set science. It really isn't.
No, it's not like 1 + 1 is 2. There is definitely an individual thing for sure.
Yep. You can get to the same place with multiple paths. What works for me may not work for the next person. And that's what makes it so hard for the client to even understand what the hell's going on. I personally was fortunate that when I started looking for help, I took a reference from one of my other soldiers of who he was seeing. I wanted to be away from the military. I didn't want to deal with a military or VA type system. So I used my insurance and went to a civilian doctor who I just got lucky was, one of the leading people in the area for PTSD. And I didn't even know what PTSD was. So I got lucky there. He was a good person. And it was hard to replace him when he closed his practice. I was upset. But I get it. And, to answer that other part of what you were saying, I think when you get put on that path that you're supposed to be on, not necessarily that path that you thought you were supposed to be on, is when you start finding that peace.
Yeah.
And how we get there differs from everybody. And maybe that attempt that you made was part of the way that you get to where you are today and find peace and be happy with the road that you're on. And I think that's important. You can tell that by the work you're doing with your podcast.
Thank you. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Before it was all about how can I better my life or my family and loved ones' lives? Yep. And the truth is, I could better many more people's lives than just myself or my family and loved ones' lives. And I was missing that. I didn't see that. And had I not taken this path, I may have never gotten here. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%, man. Since, I've been podcasting now, I think this is like year 4. And I've met some awesome people. And, I met a support group that I joined that helped me out tremendously. I'd probably be in jail today if I hadn't been with them, because they seemed to be the only people that got my temper under control. So I'm 100% behind what you're saying. Therapy does work. It may not work the first time. It may not work with the person that you're trying the first time. But if you don't give up and you say, okay, well, I don't like how this person's doing it, let me find somebody else, you'll find that person that clicks and that can relate and works.
Yeah. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be the person you recommend, right? Like the therapist that was for me was great. That doesn't mean if I recommended her for you, she would work, right? You have to find the best one for you. And that means different things to different people. So I think that's the part people really have to keep in mind.
Yeah. And that's, I think that is another part that makes it so hard, right? Is trauma is one of those things that not only is PTSD the name of the same problem or disease, right? And some of the symptoms might be the same, but at the end of the day, what triggers this disease is going to be different for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why how one person works with somebody. Had I gone to somebody that maybe dealt 90% with sexual trauma, maybe that person wouldn't have worked for me. That's not my those are not my triggers. I wouldn't have been able to relate. And I think that's a big part of it is just finding somebody that can relate to what you're going through and has experience in that part. And it is frustrating because they also want to throw drugs at you, and that in itself changes how you are.
Don't take them. Go to the gym, work out.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that you can do. And
I'm a big fan of physical fitness. There's just too much research that shows how much being physically active not only affects your entire body, but also your brain's chemistry. Yeah. And so I'm just a huge fan of physical fitness. I did try the antidepressant type drugs. And I needed them and tried them because I wasn't working out. I was, so focused on working or family or whatever. And I was excluding fitness as a priority in my life. But every time I put it back in my life as a priority, because that's all it boils down to, really, to be honest. Because, I have a full-time job. I'm a consultant for the government. I do 2 podcasts. I have a wife. I have 2 sons. But guess what? I still work out 5 days a week. Why? Because I make it a priority. Yep. And my mental health is just always so much better when I'm working out, doing physical fitness.
I agree. I just had a guest on, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't fully remember it. And I don't want to say it wrong. But he was from Australia, and his theory is using breath work to help with trauma and anxiety, right?
Well, it's like meditation, so that makes sense.
Yeah. But we got into a topic. When I was in the military, I was a big runner. I loved distance running. I was good at the 2 mile, thank God, or I'd had a 180 PT score. But
believe it or not, I hated running. I actually joined the Army hoping it would help me find a love for it and become a better runner. No, I still hate it.
Yeah, and I think that's the way it is. You're either good at the push-ups, the sit-ups, and you're not a fan of the running, or you're good at running and you struggle with the push-ups. And it's just one of those things. But there's a thing out there that I always refer to it, because that's how it was explained to me. It was called a runner's high, right?
Yep.
And I never understood how to get to that point, but I knew I liked it when I did. It was like you were just so present in that moment while you're running, and adrenaline's going and everything else. But I never knew what caused that, right?
Yeah.
And when I was talking to him, it made sense why it would happen at that point, because your body is being forced to take in so much oxygen that it can. And at that point, it allows your brain to say, hey, I need oxygen. And it completely focuses on that one thing, which brings you to in the moment. You no longer, when you started that run, maybe you had problems, bill problems that you're dealing with, and a deployment coming up or whatever, and that you're thinking for in the future. And now you're only 30% there in the moment of what you're doing at that time. And so when he said that, it really made me think about how just the basics, like you said, working out, hydration, faith, those types of things can go a long way before an antidepressant.
Yeah. And on the running thing, so I hated running. I hated the 2-mile run, for the Army. And every time I had to do a PT test, I dreaded it. Right. But in training and stuff, that's what I did love about the military is you're pushed to do things that you didn't know you could do or you were capable of doing. And that's the whole point, right? To show you what you're capable of, even when you don't think you are.
Yep.
And so sometimes we would run 5-8 miles, whatever it was we were doing in training. And, you actually reach a point where you're like, you're dying for a while. And then you reach a point where you're like, oh man, I feel like I could run forever. I feel like I could run without stopping. And if I hadn't been in the military to force me to do that, I would have never known that feeling.
Yeah. No, you're 100% correct, man. I can't get past this part of it too. I want to dig into this a little bit too. I love what you're doing with the mental health side of this, but Ohio State, man.
Says the guy with the Cincinnati Joe Burrow. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now?
My college team. I'm a Georgia guy, so I like the Dogs, but yeah, I've been a Bengals fan. I mean, I can move, and you'll see there's Ken Anderson's.
Come on, bro.
MVP.
Yeah. But
jersey.
I grew up in Ohio. I'm from Ohio. I've been a Buckeye since I was a kid, and let's be honest, it's the greatest college football program of all time. I mean, as much as everyone wants to hate on them or crap on them, they've been in the AP 1,000 weeks, which is the most of any team in college football history. That team up north that I like to call scum comes in second with like 926 or something like that. So, I mean, Alabama had a great run when Saban was there, probably the greatest run in college football history. But I just feel like, honestly, genuinely, Ohio State's the greatest program of all time. And I sincerely mean that. Everyone will want to, argue their school because Georgia has a great program as well, right? There's no arguing or denying.
If you're a running back.
Yeah. But they've had some success recent years, and they screwed us out of a national championship a few years ago. But overall, there are some really great schools, but I really believe the Buckeyes are the greatest football school of all time.
They, I do like Ohio State. I was just teasing with you. I'm not a fan. That's not my favorite team.
Yeah.
But when you get away from the SEC, there's very few teams that I could give a shit about.
Man, I got to tell you too, while you're bringing that up, ESPN makes me hate the SEC. That's the truth, right? I mean, they bought into their program and they have the SEC channel and all that. And they just push the SEC so much that it just feels like marketing. Like it doesn't feel genuine. and it drives me insane, right? Because the last two national championship winners are the Big Ten. They didn't even play an SEC opponent in the national championship. Yep. So, like, stop with the SEC rhetoric and hype. Like, you know, I get it. They had a great run there, but come on, stay current, right? I know the SEC and the Big Ten are the two best conferences. I completely get that. I understand that, but it's just a constant promotion. Like, even Texas being number one right now is a joke to me. Why is Texas number one? Why?
I agree. I completely agree with that. You know, the reason why I like the SEC and it's just there's so much competition, you know, in that area. There is some great schools, LSU, you know, Alabama. And when Mizzou went to the SEC, you know, I had said they're going to become a better team just for making that move. Are they still ever a national championship team? No. Will they ever be? I don't know. But if you look at Mizzou before they were in the SEC, their program has came a long way. And I don't know if that's because maybe being in the SEC brings more money to the schools. I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, there's no arguing that, like, you know, I watched that new Netflix series that's out about the SEC. Did you watch that?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah, they have a new series out about the SEC. And of course, the whole time they're talking about how it's the greatest conference in college football and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and then they're crapping on Vanderbilt the whole time. Because let's be honest, until Vanderbilt beat Alabama last year, they were a joke of both conferences, right? I mean, they were worse. They were the worst team in either conference of all time. And now they're trying to be legit. So, and good for them. But, you know, you have to just look at who's the best at the top, right? That's what really matters at the end of the day. Who are the top tier teams? Who's going to the playoffs? Who's winning the national championship? This argument about the stuff in between, oh, we can go on the road or we can play someone every week in the SEC and lose. Yeah, that's true in the Big Ten too. I mean, if perfect example, you know, Alabama, who was dominating 2 years ago, almost lost to Auburn in their you know, rivalry game, when the argument is, well, Auburn's an SEC school, they're so great. Really? Because just the week before, New Mexico State came into Auburn and pounded them like 35-10. So now you're going to tell me between New Mexico State pounding them and them going to Alabama, they just magically got 100 times better? I mean, I just get so frustrated with the rhetoric. It drives me nuts.
I will tell you, there's two teams that when Georgia play, I just, you know, it just bugs me because I know that Georgia does have some hype. You know, what was it? Not last year, the year before, I think it was. You know, they bragged about how Georgia was undefeated and how great they were. Well, shit, they had a high school schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, they really didn't play anybody. And then when they started playing some of these other teams that
last year
were good, last year, they got their asses kicked because it went to their head, man. They were destroying teams, but they were like.
And then your coach started crying about it, right? I mean, I know that's a mean way to put it, but let's be real. Oh, it's so, our schedule is so rough. We blah, blah, blah. Look at Florida. Have you seen Florida? Last year, they had the worst schedule. This year, their schedule is freaking brutal. It has to be the worst schedule again. If anyone should be upset, it's Florida.
Yep. Yeah. That's how I feel about the Bengals this year. I mean, holy shit! You swear to God, we won the Super Bowl with that schedule.
Oh, dude, don't get me started. I mean, Joe Burrow is the most sore subject for me as a Buckeye fan. Because let me tell you this, I knew and loved Joe Burrow in high school, right? As a high school football player, he had committed to Ohio State, I think, when he was a sophomore, right? Yeah. And then he just never got his shot. And even when JT Barrett was there, it was his senior year. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Joe Burrow outplayed him in the spring game. Like, Joe Burrow was clearly the better quarterback. Urban Meyer still plays JT Barrett. Then the next year comes around and they decide to play Dwayne Haskins. You know, in his respect, he had the greatest year a quarterback had ever had at Ohio State. So I'm not saying he didn't earn the job, but then of course, Joe Burrow has to leave. What does he do? Go win a Heisman National Championship? Whatever. Could have been our quarterback, but whatever.
Yep. Yeah. You know, I got high hopes, maybe not necessarily this year, after seeing how Cincinnati's defense came out and played against Seattle's second string. But
no, Cincinnati's defense is terrible. It's terrible.
Burrow
has to score 50 a week to win. Yeah. It's awful.
Yeah. And now, you know, no Trey Henderson, unless they get him signed. I doubt they do. Cincinnati's just, I think all of the AFC North, to be honest, is like that. They just do not negotiate. This is your deal. You don't like it. I don't care. We're not giving you an extra dime. And,
yeah, it's funny how different the AFC North is, right? Like the Clowns are always the Clowns, right? They're the Cleveland Clowns. Cincinnati goes up and down. I think they have maybe the best quarterback in the NFL now. That's my personal opinion. Steelers, they're really great at developing. They're really great at drafting, getting young talent, and staying pretty consistent. But the Ravens, man, the Ravens are, to me, the best team in the AFC North because they're just so consistent and they just do so well.
Yeah, I hate everything about them. I mean,
I bet.
I don't even like purple anymore. You know, I didn't like Baltimore. I didn't like the Ravens. I sure as hell don't like to have to play them every, you know, Thursday at their home, you know, every year instead of us getting a Thursday night game in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I don't even watch the NFL. That's the truth. Really? I keep up with it, you know, because I like football, right? I'm a football guy. I love football, frankly. But my love for football at this point in life is just college. I used to watch them all. Don't get me wrong. I used to have the NBA season pass on DirecTV, the MLB pass. I had them all, right? NFL Sunday ticket. But as life progresses and you got to start weeding things out so you can put more things in and be more productive in life, I had reached a point where the only two things left were the NFL and college. And obviously that ends up consuming your whole weekend for 4 months. Yep. And so I had to dwindle that down too. And I bleed scarlet and gray. So it was going to be college football. So I had to let the NFL go about 7 or 8 years ago. I track it. I keep up with it a little bit, but I don't watch it anymore. But I see what's going on and I watch the Super Bowl and stuff. But yeah, it's, to me, college football is the greatest sport on the planet. I love it.
When it comes to the love of the game, absolutely. College football is real football.
Yeah.
You know, I feel the same way about high school football. You know, your bigger teams that the guys are looking for those scholarships to go to the bigger schools. You know, that's where the love of the game is played. It's all left out there on the field. The NFL is not like that. You go to the NFL, and I watched T. Higgins last year he played career football.
Yeah.
You're not going to pay me. I'm not going to get hurt. I'm not going across the middle and opening up for this ball.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sore. I'm not playing this week, you know? And so there it's all about the career and the money. And that waters down the sport. It really does. Same thing happened in boxing. And I think at the end of the day that I just love football, man.
I do too. I mean, I used to always say like my favorite sport to play, because it was basketball. I loved playing basketball. But my favorite sport to watch is football. And let me just say this. I watch, back to what you're saying about high school football. Where I live in Tucson, I used to go watch Bijan Robinson and Lathan Ransom. They were on the same team at South Point in high school. And from what I can tell, Bijan isn't exactly having the greatest career in the NFL. But let me tell you something, man. That kid, as a sophomore, a freaking sophomore in high school, was the most athletic, talented dude on the football field. It didn't matter who they stepped on the field with. When he was a sophomore, they won the state championship, and he was the best player in the state. He was just unbelievable.
And I think the big problem there is the Falcons.
Yeah.
I really don't. I can't think of a real running back that they had that they developed and was successful.
Yeah, it's almost. I grew up a Bears fan, and it's like any quarterback that goes to the Bears, you can just count their career goodbye. So, yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
Yep. I think at some point Bijan will go somewhere else and he's going to explode. I really do. I think he's going to have.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm rooting for him. I definitely want to see him. He's got the talent. It's there. It just needs to be tapped into. And, Lathan Ransom, who I've known since he was a sophomore in high school as well. He went to the Carolina Panthers this year. So we'll see how his career goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it always funny? These rookies, these great rookies go to the shitty NFL teams.
Yeah.
And we just had a conversation about leadership.
Yeah.
Going to the Carolina Panthers is like saying, welcome to the Army.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there are definitely teams like that for sure. I mean, Cleveland Browns, that's where quarterbacks go to die too, in Cleveland. So
yeah, ever since Vinny Shitaverdi.
Yeah.
There's only been a few quarterbacks I can honestly say I can't stand. And for most people it was Tom Brady. And for me, I always hated Doug Flutie. How the hell you throw one good pass in your college career that was really just a miracle catch, and next thing you know you're on a Wheaties box? I get it. He's broke every record in Canadian football, but I mean they duplicated the 50-yard line. So
yeah, that's funny. I never heard anyone have any angst against Doug Flutie. That's funny.
I just never in the NFL. I just was never a fan, man.
I just remember people that I thought had the potential to be great that didn't pan out, like say Jeff George or Ryan Leaf
yeah.
Jay Cutler. Even Jay Cutler had all the talent in the world, and his career was mediocre compared to what it should have been or could have been. So
I'm really surprised that nobody really picked up Ryan Leaf after he left. I mean, I get it. When you say disastrous careers, I mean there was no prep there. There was, here's the playbook, you're starting.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in the NFL, man.
It must have been something with his personality or attitude. It's the only thing, it's the only thing I could come up with.
Yeah.
But talent wise, he had it for sure. Yeah.
I mean, and the team he played for, I mean, at that time, they weren't as good as they are now, but they weren't, the Panthers, right. They had some talent, but that's a good point, man. Ryan Leaf was absolutely a guy that I think they destroyed his career,
Yeah.
And Cincinnati's known for that, having psychotic people, Ocho Cinco. I mean, look at that guy. He don't even know what his name is anymore.
No, that dude's a trip for sure. But I mean, they didn't really. I mean, they had Boomer Esiason, but until Joe Burrow, who did they really have that was a great quarterback?
You mean Gus Frerotte wasn't great?
No, he was not. I don't know if they told you, but no, he wasn't.
I think when Carson Palmer played for Cincinnati,
Palmer wasn't bad,
but he was not the same after he hurt his knee.
That's for sure. That's true. He was decent.
And Dalton, I thought he was better than he was, I guess, because even playing, I don't see a difference in the way he played for Cincinnati than the way he does for Carolina as a second string quarterback. So I don't think, I don't think he was as good as what the team made him look.
I don't think Cincinnati's ever going to reach their potential till the ownership changes. I mean, we all know, right? I lived in Dayton for years and years, and which is pretty close to Cincinnati, and so I got a lot of the Cincinnati sports radio and talk shows. And even though that wasn't necessarily my team, right, I do kind of root for the Bengals. I would call them maybe my second favorite team if I was watching the NFL. And definitely when they got Burrow, I definitely root for them as well. But it just seems like Paul Brown is just not a good owner from what I understand.
I think he's a businessman.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think he cares more about the bottom line than the Super Bowl.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily good for the team. So
it's not. Might be good for his wallet, but not.
Exactly.
Well, brother, I'm going to bring you forward, man, and give you the opportunity to tell everybody how they can find your podcast and learn a little bit about some mental health as they tune into the Ohio State Buckeye podcast as well.
Yeah, man. So I appreciate that. So my mental health, podcast where I'm trying to save lives and, help people who are on the brink of suicide or going through a difficult time and trying to work their way through that difficult time. Brandon Held, Life is Crazy. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, even though it's not on video, the audio version is on YouTube. So Brandon Held, Life is Crazy. And then for my college football podcast, I mean, it's probably only going to interest most Ohio State fans. So if you happen to be smart enough to be an Ohio State football fan, it's called Buckeye Battle Cry podcast. We do that on video on YouTube. So you can find us on video on YouTube, or you can listen to us as well anywhere you find podcasts. It's Buckeye Battle Cry podcast.
All right, man. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll go ahead and throw the exit video out. If you don't mind sticking around, we'll chit chat for a few minutes, man. I hope all you guys out there listening, go check out his podcast. If you're a Texas fan, you can go before the season starts, go listen to his podcast about college sports. And then when you realize how bad your team really is, you can go check out his Life is Crazy podcast so you don't hurt yourself. But at the end of the day, some great stuff has been said here. And I hope you guys have listened about how resilience and, just being mentally aware and saying, hey, I need some help is not a bad thing. So check out his shows. And as always, I appreciate all you guys listening. Don't let the day kick your ass. Kick the day's ass.